Jesus Christ, I need a haircut.
Hello, welcome to The Wild Review. I'm The Wild Reviewer, and today I'm going to review a thing. Lab Rats is awesome. It's badass, it's funny, and it's awesome. I thought of just like spitting it all out there. You know, I don't have an opening. You know Lab Rats, it's that Disney show. That Disney show that everybody hates. Or at least some people hate. A lot of kids like it, and I like it. My brother might like it. Some of my friends like it. I like it. Sure, it might come off as another Disney rip-off show about keeping a family secret or really bad comedy at some points, but if you actually sit down and watch the show, it's not that bad. I would say it's the only show that actually goes to limits other Disney shows would not dare to go to. Like, I doubt you would see any action-packed stuff going on in The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody if they brought in a main antagonist. Then again, this show's about three kids with bionic abilities fighting evil kind of when it strikes, and that show was about two kids living in a hotel. Alright, bad comparison. For those unaware of what Lab Rats is, it's about this little boy named Leo Dooley, whose life changes when his mother, Tasha Dooley, renamed to Tasha Davenport, remarries a billionaire scientist named Donald Davenport. They move into his huge mansion filled with a whole bunch of cool rooms and cool sci-fi-ish stuff. And while searching for his room, Leo stumbles upon an elevator, which instead of bringing it to his bedroom, brings him all the way down to his basement. Or at least what he thinks is his basement, which is actually revealed to be a lab that is holding Davenport's latest project, three teenagers with bionic abilities. These teenagers are named Adam, Bree, and Chase, and they have bionic abilities. I just said that. The first two seasons obviously start out with the typical keeping the family secret thing. It's that typical Disney show. But at the beginning of season 2 and actually end of season 1, that's where stuff gets a little hectic. Wikipedia states that from season 2 onward is when the show starts getting really darker and darker as we get introduced to more of these antagonists. And the antagonists are pretty badass. I mean, they'll do anything to physically either kidnap these kids or just basically downright kill the characters. It's fun to note that this show is actually created by the people that did That 70s Show. So that's why it's kind of funny. I find it funny. Anyway, I could talk about how awesome Lab Rats is for hours. I mean, I absolutely love this show right next to Doctor Who. I think it's really fantastic, and I'm not even lying here. I could talk about how awesome Victor Crane is. I could talk about how hyped I am about this week's new episode, On the Edge, which I feel like is going to be pretty awesome. I could talk about how hyped I feel about the return of Marcus, who, if you haven't seen the show, you'll probably be confused of what I'm talking about on how Marcus is coming back. I could talk about it for hours, but because we have limited time, here are 3 reasons why I like Lab Rats. Number 1, it's the only Disney show that actually comes close to killing their main characters. And by close, I mean close. Because we gotta remember, it's a Disney show. You can't have deaths of the main characters, you can't have blood. If one of the main characters decides not to return for a season, they do what Pair of Kings does, and have the main character leave. In the most pathetic way ever. Why, Mitchell Musso, why? But seriously, I don't think there's any other Disney show in the history of Disney shows that has even come close to killing off their main characters in those type of superhero / supervillain fighting shows. I've never seen one. This is the first one that I've seen, and I'm actually shocked they're kind of getting away with it. And by almost kill, I mean they physically almost kill. There's an episode called Rise of the Secret Soldiers, which is a really hyped episode that you'd probably have to watch the beginning of season 3 for to understand what exactly is going on, who Victor Crane is, and so on. One of the main characters, Donald Davenport, is fighting Victor Crane along with his brother Douglas Davenport, who used to be an evil villain on the show, but then turned good after Crane kind of betrayed him. It's a long story. If you watch the show, you understand what I'm talking about. But during their battle, Victor Crane uses all of his blasting ability and blasts Donald all the way to the other side of the island that they're fighting on. And he physically goes into a coma and goes into surgery, and we don't get the results until the next episode, Bionic House Party, where he physically flatlines. He flatlines. Not only that, but there was also a second death, as Leo almost died in that episode. That's because Leo has a bionic arm, and he was given that in an episode called You Posted What, which again is a long story. He got his arm crushed. You'd have to watch the show to understand. But Leo used his arm to take some of his energy out of his body and put it into Donald's in order to save his life. However, that started to speed up Leo's aging process, and Leo basically almost died in this episode. That is until the bionic soldiers, who are now turned good, did the exact same thing to Leo. And because they all did it at the same time, the thing is, it's very confusing. I don't understand it. Like, Leo did it, and he aged fast, but because a bunch of them did it, the process is... You need to make sense, show! But those aren't the only episodes that actually have main characters dying. Number 2, the show knows the difference between being funny and being serious. Lab Rats is one of those dramatic shows on Disney Channel, but it's also a comedy. There is a laugh track, there is an applause, there is all that stuff. But they know the difference between being funny and being serious. Obviously, because it's a comedy, there are a whole bunch of jokes, and the jokes are actually funny. Adam is the typical kind of like dumb person. He's a good-looking guy, but he's obviously dumb. That has been played out so many times, but with him it kind of works, kind of. He's funny, let's put it that way. But there are a whole bunch of jokes that get thrown around, and I do find them humorous. Especially when there are new characters and they just bring in a joke, and yeah, you have to watch the show to understand. But the show also knows how to be serious at some points, especially when there's a villain like Crane or the new villain Giselle. You know, when those kind of episodes happen and a character is put into a life-dangerous situation such as dying, you know, there's no laugh track. There really isn't any sort of like track at all, actually. In the episode Bionic Action Hero, for instance, the part where Chase is on the bed and his heart isn't beating, Adam and Bree run in to see if he's alive, and there is actually a serious moment that makes you want to cry. It's so perfect that they didn't ruin it by any jokes, they didn't bring in a laugh track. In fact, it was a whole full minute and a half of absolute seriousness, which I'm not 100% a fan of. I like comedy, but in this situation it works, and I think that's what makes this show great. They know the difference between doing comedy and also know when the difference with being serious is. Unlike another show that ran on Disney XD that I don't like very much. I mean, it's alright, but I'm not a fan like I am with Lab Rats. And number 3, it's just different. I know what you're gonna say. This show is not different from any other show. You can compare this show to Wizards of Waverly Place because of how similar it is. 3 kids have magical powers and they gotta keep it a secret. Yeah, I get it. But Lab Rats is unique in its own way. It's got villains, like I said, that are willing to do anything to kill these kids. It's got plot twists. It's got seriousness. It's got suspense. It's got the main characters in a limousine about to fall off a bridge this Wednesday on Disney XD. Lab Rats Off the Edge. On the Edge. Sorry. Watch it. This is why I need a script. Bottom line, you can compare it to any other Disney show that is similar in any way, but I think it's different. I think it's unique. I think it's funny. I think it knows what it's doing. It's just a very cool, awesome, badass show. I've never seen anything like Lab Rats. In fact, I've never seen a show that has kids with, like, bionic abilities. I've seen kids with wizard powers, superpowers, ghost powers, any kind of powers. I've never seen bionic abilities, though. And the fact that, you know, these kids aren't even robots. In the first episode, they make a joke like, oh, so these kids are robots? They're not robots. They actually just have chips in their neck, which I guess connect to all the muscles, giving them all these abilities, and it's pretty awesome, and I like it. I like Lab Rats. I love the show. It's a good show. So that's my basic review over Lab Rats. I just really like the show. I can't say it enough. I'm very glad it made it to a 4th season. I'm very excited for this Wednesday to see On the Edge. You know, from the trailers, it looks very intense, but I am very sad that Season 4 will be the last season of Lab Rats, but I am very excited because next year, they announced last month that they're doing a spin-off series, or a sequel series, that's also kind of like a crossover with Mighty Med, called Lab Rats Elite Force, which it sounds pretty interesting, You know, luckily it has the Lab Rats writers, but let's just hope it doesn't have the Mighty Med humor. Yeah, I'm like I said before, I'm not a big fan of Mighty Med. There's nothing really wrong with it. You know, I thought the crossover with Lab Rats was fine until we got to the Mighty Med part. Mighty Med is original, but it's not one of my favorites. The comedy is very stale. And unlike Lab Rats, they don't have very serious moments. There was only like one. And that was it. Everything else is a joke. Which, there's nothing wrong with that. I like comedies. But wow, the comedy. Just... maybe for another time. So that's my opinion on Lab Rats. That's my review on it. That's my expressional love about the show. Now I want to hear from you guys. Do you watch Lab Rats? Is there a reason you don't watch Lab Rats if you don't watch it? If you watch it, what is your favorite episode, and are you excited for this Wednesday? Do you agree or disagree with anything I said in this video? Tell me in the comments, and also leave me your suggestions for whatever movie, TV show, or random thing you want me to talk about next. Thanks for watching The Wild Review. I'm The Wild Reviewer, and you just saw me review a thing.